Oh, hey there, guys and gals. How's it going? Caught me early today. Let's see. I got a big old alert on my phone. Let's see. 16 billion passwords just leaked. The world's largest data breach just happened. I really wish I wasn't living through a historical moment right about now. Ooh, no, 16 billion Apple, Facebook, and Google passwords leaked. You better act now. So, ladies and gentlemen, I started seeing everyone sort of talk about this. 16 billion logins were discovered. But thankfully, Apple Insider was like, don't panic. Out of all of the actual crazy news that I've seen, leave it to maybe a couple of people that disarm crazy levels of panic. So again, I'm not here to scare you. I'm not here to fearmonger you. Okay, I'm here to kill your panic a little bit. Are their passwords leaked? Absolutely. Do you have to necessarily worry? I guess it depends. And the long answer I'll give you, but the short answer is, as long as you've got that password manager and you've got that two-factor authentication, I think you can go back to playing whatever video game you just were, and hopefully not have to worry about somebody breaking into your very, very personal information. But let me give you the longer answer, okay? Let me walk you through exactly what's been going on. So first off, 16 billion passwords that have been leaked. I mean, that's an insane amount. When you look at the world population, we're at 8.2 billion people? I mean, thank God we're pumping babies out 2-to-1 right now, okay? People are growing, people are dying, it's crazy. But yeah, 16 billion passwords effectively means that did everyone in this list just get hacked twice? Even the embryos? Surely that doesn't make any sense. Now, I decided to look further into this to see how much of information provided was actually valid. And by the way, this has got some really crazy quotes that I've been seeing. So for instance, the researchers inside this situation have said that this is not just a leak. It's a blueprint for mass exploitations. With over 16 billion login records exposed, cyber criminals now have unprecedented access to personal credentials that can be used for account takeover, identity theft, and highly targeted phishing. When I open up a lot of those AIs that I show you all the time where people write crazy phishing emails. Back in the day, it was the whole Nigerian prince thing, where somebody sat down and they wrote an email to hundreds of people, thousands of people, and maybe one person was gullible enough to fall for it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, nowadays things have gotten pretty crazy when it comes to phishing people for information, right? Now, to just give you a quick phishing example, so to speak, since we loaded up this actual AI into this, right? This uncensored artificial intelligence. Let's say that you're somebody named Tom Smith and you work at the Honey Trading Company. You're a marketing executive. Nowadays, to write targeted phishing emails, somebody can just load up an uncensored AI and ask it, write me a phishing email. So I even asked the AI, the guy's a marketing executive, please try to figure out the best way to get this fucking idiot to open up a goddamn attachment. And as soon as I feed this to the artificial intelligence, it'll write me a pretty quick actual phishing email. Now you can modify and change these things around to your heart's content, but we're long past the days of Nigerian phishing emails where again people were just generally targeted because it was easy to send a massive mailer to hundreds of thousands of people. Now if you want to specifically target somebody, just have a little bit of information on them and you might be able to create something a little convincing. So to go back, what they said what's especially concerning is the structure and recency of these data sets. These aren't just old breaches being recycled, this is fresh, weaponizable intelligence at scale. So that seems really scary, right? And when I wanted to see how they got it, right, is this information somewhere out in the open on a forum? According to the researchers, they basically got to see just a little bit of this data as it was being temporarily accessible through unsecured elastic searches or object search instances, right? And again, for anybody that doesn't know what Elasticsearch is, they're referring to these open source, searching platforms and whatnot, right? They briefly got a peek into the data, but not enough, I guess, to really see who was playing around with it, okay? Which is a little bit odd. So when it comes to a data breach, the first thing I did was I went to who's been pwned, right? Have I been pwned? And this is a great site by a researcher, Troy Hunt, who basically catalogs, him and his team catalog some of the most recent breaches. And as long as you go to their website, you can type in your email address and it will tell you if your email address has been part of a breach. So you can basically figure out, have you been breached somewhere? Where do I need to change my passwords? Yada, yada, yada. There's other platforms too, again, Cyber News' own password leak checker. Or again, you can go over here and type in password. So for instance, if I use an old password, it'll say, yeah, it's got detected 406 times in leaked databases. This is back before I knew anything that I was doing. And now if I use one of my passwords, it is completely safe for now. If I use a variation of other passwords or even just this one, it's still pretty safe. So again, things are a little bit different for me. I'll get into a bit of a story why down the road. But again, over here, ladies and gentlemen, it seems to be pretty scary sounding. Until, of course, you kind of look at it and realize it really isn't all that scary. In fact, a lot of these big privacy companies like Proton, for instance, I use their mailing service for crying out loud, was just going 16 billion passwords leaked. You read that right. Billion. Infostealers are eating good. So yes, the way they ended up getting these passwords, right, these mega passwords that were being shared around, was through something known as Infostealers, right? Now, of course, the way an Infostealer works is I'm going to have a quick virtual machine right over here. So this is a VM that I have, and of course, I downloaded a Infostealer virus, actually one that was floating around literally, I think, earlier today. So for instance, at the Malware Bazaar, I went to the Bazaar, and I decided to go get an Infostealer for my system. Particularly, I got this Donut Infostealer Luma Stealer virus, okay? So I go to their website, I download the sample, and lo and behold, I have it right here on my actual desktop. So this cute little bear that I have sitting around, yeah, this cute little bear is about to steal my information. So I'm going to double click. And of course, operation did not complete successfully because of a virus. Oh my God, Microsoft is protecting me? It's just a cute bear. Microsoft's being really overprotective. You know, people are like, why don't you use the new antivirus, Muda? Well, it's because the one that comes with Microsoft is just God tier. So anyways, now that I allowed this to happen, this Beaver Notes application is firing up. You start to see that little circle twirl around, and boom, it just stole all my information. That's how this entire situation works, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever wonder why virus investigation isn't as, bombastic as you think sometimes, most of the times a virus, very rarely will sometimes throw up a little terminal prompt, scare you a little bit. But yeah, my information is stolen. What happened was I connected to a command server, it stole everything it could off of the system. Thank God it was a virtual machine, and will kill it very promptly. So that's how these passwords were amassed. Now, according to the guys over at Cyber News, the data sets were actually part of many. So the 20 data sets that were all sort of combined together had millions upon millions of entries. So basically what had happened was a lot of information from, previous data breaches, not even recent in some cases it seems, actually got fused together. And that is why, this is a kind of a nothing burger story to an extent, okay? Because it really is just, all these big news agencies, these people that really don't know what they're talking about, slap the biggest number they could. And technically, this is the biggest data breach that has ever occurred in history. But honestly, when you look past the clickbait and you look past the hype, if you will, the fear-mongering, it really isn't all that spooky. So again, even the researchers are like, there's no way to compare data between different data sets. It's safe to say that overlapping records are present. So obviously, just because there's 16 billion entries doesn't mean it's 16 billion people's unique information, okay? That's not even fucking possible. Even if it was just duplicated information, there's just, again, it's a big number that's supposed to be scary. It could be 100 billion accounts that have been leaked, okay? And it wouldn't change the story in any ways. But one thing that's really huge is obviously down over here, they said that information connected to every single organization. So Apple, Facebook, Google, GitHub, and Telegram, and then even various government services. So that alone is really huge. Now, somebody that knows his cybersecurity, and I understand how this plays in the grand scheme, anytime a company as large as this gets hacked, okay, there needs to be some statements that happen. Now, first off, I want you to just do a little thought experiment in your head, okay? Apple and Google and these companies are huge, right? So if all of them got hacked, all right, and had their shit breached out for the world to basically pick through, either the hacker in this situation is like God, okay, or, if we're going to be looking at it from a realistic sense of like who could be behind it, right? Even the North Koreans, which are some of the best hackers in the world, I don't even think we're able to pull it off. Even, people from like the Israeli Shin Bet, the Mossad or whatever that, were responsible with like the delivery of Stuxnet, one of the craziest virus attacks of all time. Even those guys wouldn't be good enough to have this shit happen in tandem, right? So again, it's just, it doesn't make sense. And that's what I want to get at with this video, right? Like, let you think a little bit critically. Even if you're not a cybersecurity expert, right? You just saw something like this blow up and people are asking you, this is how you think about the situation critically. Now, the big thing is, when a company as large as this gets hacked, what you need to do is check if they have a Form 8-K. So for anybody that doesn't know, in the United States, when you're a US company, if you get hacked, right, as of July 26, 2023, you have to disclose every material cybersecurity incidents under item 1.05 of Form 8-K. And you can look these up through the SEC all the time. So, by the way, none of these companies have tripped a Form 8-K. And from my understanding, they have literally 4 days from discovery to at least notify people of this. Now, again, if you remember back in 2021 when like Twitch got hacked, for instance, right? Even though Twitch's hack was probably nowhere really near what's being talked about over here, they had to, again, tell their entire shareholders, more specifically the users that use Twitch TV, hey guys, we got hacked. This is exactly what got leaked out, so this is how you can take care of yourself. Now, even when it comes to every company that they claimed was hacked over here, remember Apple, Google, these guys have some of the best world-class cybersecurity like teams imaginable. So for all of them to get hacked in tandem is just kind of a little bit silly to jump into. And given the fact that, again, people like Troy Hunt, people that are whose whole livelihoods and brand are about these kind of breaches, haven't really come out and confirmed this stuff, just shows you that this is all just kind of hoopla that's happening, right? Just for the sake of, again, freaking people out for no real reason. Now, again, the good thing that I can tell you is if this worries you, then I guess I'm going to assume that you're probably not somebody that's good with your passwords. And this is where I want to just give you a quick little story about something back in the day. About like, 10 years ago when I started my YouTube channel, I actually did end up getting my channel hacked. And from my understanding, got my channel hacked by an actual fan at the time. Somebody that was watching like haunted gaming videos. They sent my YouTube channel's Google email account that is not publicly known an email. They sent me an email of them like, able to log into the Google account. Now, at the time, it was kind of freaky, right? I was like, oh my God, somebody had hacked me. But thankfully, this was not a hacker that was maliciously attacking me. And it gave me a wake-up call to change my security around. Now, ever since then, when I realized that my password got hacked, that password I put in earlier was a password that I just kept on reusing because honestly, I was lazy. And, I just didn't really, have the foresight, so to speak. Now, in this situation, what I did, like literally almost 10 years ago at this point, was go into my actual system. I spent probably 4 or 5 hours going to every single website that I use or every single login that I knew, and I changed the password through a password manager. And so the password manager that I recommend wholeheartedly is Bitwarden, right? This is what you have to be using, at least in my opinion. This is the best one that I found. And the reason I use it is because it's cross-platform. So whether you're on iOS, Android, PC, Mac, Linux, whatever the fuck, this thing just works. And even for a enterprise level, like at the company, I probably spend around $100 a year to get like the enterprise version for all of our computers. And I think it's one of the best password managers, right? So basically you have one really long password you got to remember. And inside these password managers, what they do is use entropic tables to generate you new passwords with, capital, lowercase letters, numbers, symbols, everything that you can customize it however you need to for whatever service. And once you get these passwords generated, the best part about it is if down the road something gets breached, like, let's say that you're using, I don't know, Nexus Mods, right? Nexus Mods gets breached, which it could happen. It could happen to any service. The random password you generated with Nexus Mods, well, that's not going to really be applicable to the other services that you use. Now, the other thing is, obviously, please use two-factor authentication. And I ain't talking about text messages or emails. I'm talking about app-based authenticators, okay? There's a lot of free apps that you can use. You got Google Authenticator, you got Microsoft Authenticator, you got shit like Authy. Use as much of these as you can for almost every single service you have. And again, if it sounds like it's annoying, remember, a little nuisance can save you a whole heck of a lot of headaches down the road, especially when you're dealing with hacks that are apparently as bombastic as this. So that's why I kind of said, like, the number really doesn't matter, right? As long as you're following basic safety procedures, none of this story really matters, right? This is all just needless hoopla. Ultimately, at the end of the day, when it comes to this password, somebody took a bunch of breaches that already happened, slapped that shit together, and then basically put it up onto a drive. And I guess a bunch of researchers thought, ooh, this must be scary. It must be actionable. And you know what? In some cases it could be, but dude, let's chill with the misinformation. So yeah, use a password manager, use two-factor authentication. And if this was a wake-up call to you, then maybe you need to look inwards at some of your practices on the internet. That said, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.